Hey, Rebels. My name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. Today's guest is Justin Reves. He's been deeply influential on Rebellion's approach to social media. He's been acting as sort of a techno-social media guru and consultant with us for years. You may have seen his work with the Justin and Greg Show, or even perhaps his Las Vegas Nights video. Maybe you've even seen his rural Uber video. As a creator, he's repeatedly and consistently managed to create viral content across multiple social media platforms, taking it to millions of hits. That's huge. Now, he's taking his knowledge and using it to help others step up their game as online content creators, including myself. A couple weeks ago, Justin wrote a really great blog post about the rise of TikTok, which inspired me to bite the bullet on Christmas and just install the app, play with it, and see what the fuss was all about. And shockingly, I found TikTok to be very charming and addictive, and I realized this is tons of fun. So let's get into it. Justin, welcome to the show.
Everybody's going to be so mad when they're like, oh, I thought you were bringing on a social media guru. It's Kermit the Frog. You know, I'm like listening to your great podcast intro voice. And here's, anyway, a voice for, I don't know what, but it's distinctive anyway.
I've been practicing my intros.
Oh, it's good. That's good. You were smooth. You were like, boom, into it. That's great. Hello, Rebels. Join the Rebel Alliance. I don't know when this is coming out, but seeing that dude on the ski slopes in a Rebellion t-shirt ruled. I don't even know who he was, but
Terry Cahill. You haven't seen Fubar?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I looked at him like, this guy's fairly popular.
It's a niche movie from, I guess, about 20 years ago. It's about two hosers from Alberta, and they go with their buddy Tron and have a big party.
I mean, people don't know this about me. You might know this enough about me, Matt. Me and pop culture, we're just, we had a whole segment where it was just people trying to bring up very obvious pop culture things, and I have no idea. I just lived a very sheltered life.
We were jumping out of our chairs when we saw Terry post that video because we're like, oh my God, he's wearing our shirt.
And his outfit, anyway, it was amazing. I hope everybody's seen it. It's so good.
How's life going in general?
Well, we're 10 months into a pandemic, I think, and everybody's like, losing their sanity slowly and trying to adapt and cope. And we've got 3 young kids at home, and that's interesting. And we're just coming off a month of no school or structure, and you know how that goes. And then it's like this distance e-learning thing that you're like, it's just more work, and you're already trying to like parent kids, and now you're trying to like teach kids at the same time, and you can't go anywhere or do anything. And so, yeah, it's great. And for a guy like I love adventure. I love you going places and doing things. And, even like I work at an airport, and you can't go anywhere. I don't know. It's a weird time.
I empathize with child education. Today I was helping Cohen with his French homework.
Oh.
And it's painful. Oh. I am terrible at French.
Yeah. It's, it's one of those things where that someday, like, I don't know that we'll go back to like normal, like exactly the way that it was before, but I think by and large, a lot of things will. And we know that we'll look back and go, oh man, like what a crazy time. But it still feels so far away to be at that point of looking back, of just like the simple things. I don't know if you find this, like you're watching a movie and the people are like close to each other and like talking in each other's faces. and you've just had it hammered into you that no, you can't do that. That's wrong. That's bad. I saw it was World Juniors, and there was a commercial on TV, which is weird to see commercials, but I watch mostly online content, watching a bit of live content. But they had a disclaimer at the bottom: this part was filmed prior to the pandemic. Because everybody's on everybody all the time, and I got lots of YouTuber friends, and they have to have disclaimers, and they have to try and explain, and if they're ever cutting back, they got to make sure everybody knows, because I don't know if you've ever seen commenters on the internet. They're an interesting bunch.
It's kind of like putting your hand into a bear trap.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Except, they're usually on the other side of bear trap is a well thought out hunter, but maybe a hunter is a good analogy. There's just a lot of broken people out there, and that just, they're not reasonable at all. And then people pile on, and anyway, online, it's a great time.
I moderate everything for Rebellion, and I have to say, our fans are fantastic.
Yep.
I don't have to step in. I don't have to moderate. Like, maybe once in 6 years I've had to ban someone ever, and that was just because they were being over the top crazy. We've got great fans.
Well, I'm actually not surprised necessarily by that, because the internet can be a dark and terrible place. But the interesting thing is, when you create a community on the internet that is like people, and more than just a community, a bit of a movement, people follow along with your vibe, and they're generally pretty good. Justin and Greg, I don't know what it had. Some videos like Rural Uber was 13 million views. Rural Maps, I think, was like 4 or 5 million views. I mean, the Moose War between Canada and Norway, it reached like 150 million people. And the actual amount of negative comments that we had was almost nil. It is bizarre. Greg and I talk about this all the time. How could we have so much content and find so little negativity? But it was like the community and the people around it really helped set the tone. Something that was funny that we used to do was trying to hack attention. We're trying to get our videos out there. So we had like 6 different Reddit accounts, and you'd post it on Reddit, and then you'd take 3 accounts and you would upvote it right away. But then it was amazing to watch. If we went in there and made the first comment positive, then the rest of the comments were generally positive. And if we didn't, and we let the first comment be negative, the comments were negative. And we saw this over and over again, that it's kind of like you set the tone. However you set the tone, when you've got community, you've got people around it, generally they follow it. So I think your fans and your people love you. It's when things start spilling far outside those circles that, sometimes you might get some negativity from people who don't know you, but yeah.
I think that is the perfect segue to talk about TikTok.
All right.
The culture, the way people seem to behave with it, the community there seems very different from Twitter, Facebook, Imager, other communities, Reddit especially.
I think it's a lot more of it's fun. I mean, you kind of wrap that up. It's creative and it's fun. And I mean, if people aren't really familiar with TikTok, I was trying to think of some analogies earlier today, and since putting the kids to bed and stuff, I think it's mostly gone, all the good analogies, but it is, it's like it's a creative party. What's different about a platform like Instagram, Instagram's about you. It's about me. With TikTok, it's all these things that are part of bigger movements. Like earlier this year, the ocean spray moment of Dogface, cruising to, a famous band, that Fleetwood Mac, is that who it was? I'm guessing.
Dreams by Fleetwood Mac.
Okay, so I'm happy I got that right. Cruising, and then all these other people are not just doing the same challenge, but finding cool, fun variations of this bigger thing that's in culture. You have a song like Blinding Lights, and I was listening to a very smart music person. He's the lead singer of One Republic, but he's produced for Timbaland and Usher and written songs for Timberlake and Beyonce and all these smart people. And he was talking about how if you talk to the guy from Blinding Lights, he will admit, as will everyone else, there's no way that song should be that big. It just shouldn't. It just wasn't that caliber of song to be as big as it was. But a huge part of the influence was all the dances that came on TikTok that just drove the song that people wanted to hear it. And if you're not familiar with TikTok or seeing the blinding lights, there's specific dances to songs. I don't even know where they start from. Somebody starts this dance and everybody does the variation of the dance to the song. And there's been a number of songs that TikTok has kind of broke for artists that wouldn't have been as big. But it's part of these bigger experiences, these bigger cultures. You do funny things to certain songs and try and make different jokes with it, or the duet feature where somebody does something and then you can put a video beside it. But it's bigger than you. And I think that's what makes it fun.
For the people who've never used TikTok, who've never interacted with it, which I still think is a sizable amount of the population.
Yeah, a lot of people.
How do you define it? How do you explain how it works?
Yeah, so just to be clear, TikTok has over 1 billion monthly active users. So 1/7 of, or 1/8, I don't know you probably know the number of, or I think it's creeping up towards 8 billion. But, that is a huge number. It's not quite Instagram, it's not Facebook, but like a lot of people. But 60%, actually 63 or 64, I was looking earlier today, of the people are under the age of 29. So it is, and the 10 to 20-year-old demographic is definitely huge. But if you're not familiar with TikTok, how would you describe it? I mean, if you've been in Instagram and you've seen Reels, it's a direct ripoff copy of what it is. But if you haven't seen that, maybe you're familiar with Instagram stories, but they're videos. They're essentially clips of videos, typically done to music, although not always done to music, that you can put text on the screen and you can kind of, I don't know, just make it fun. But it started off originally as this app called Musical.ly, and it was a lot more focused on just dancing to music. That's kind of where it started. But the creativity has really come out of morphing that into other things. And there's really popular trends in it that people are following, these shuffle dances that are a specific kind of dance you kind of have to see. And I won't tell you how sweaty I got a couple of nights trying to learn a couple of shuffle dances to hopefully embarrass my kids one day, like the floss, the new version of it. But yeah, it's really fun, creative videos that typically showcase music and humor. I don't know. You probably have some. You're fresh on it. How do you describe it?
1-minute videos, little snacks of content. You dip in, it zeroes in on what your interest is and kind of starts presenting it to you.
Yeah, it is. That is actually amazing where it's so much based on an algorithm that you watch a few videos, and by watch, like you just kind of keep swiping, right? You can endlessly swipe. I don't know if you've had this where suddenly you're swiping on TikToks and 3 or 4 hours has gone by, which is crazy. If you did the math on how many videos you actually watched, you swipe up, you watch some for half a second, you watch some for 4 seconds, some you watch for 8, 9, 10 seconds. And if you watch some for 8, 9, 10 seconds, you're just getting more and more and more of those. But it is, when you get interested in things, like the creativity is really fascinating. What's interesting about TikTok for me is, I mean, I signed up in the Musical.ly days just for funsies of getting into it and trying to see it. And it was just music and dancing, and a terrible dancer. So, I didn't really touch it. And then I would say probably about a year ago, I kind of checked out TikTok again. And I felt very much like the old, creepy 30-something-year-old dude, me and teenage girls dancing to music. And I was very uncomfortable, and I didn't go on it because it just felt weird. But then it's kind of grown and it's kind of aged and it's gotten a little bit older. And this last time, I would say sometime in the fall, I was like, I got to check out TikTok again. And when I went on TikTok, it just felt so completely different. It was full of creativity. It was full of really funny things. I think it's amazing seeing the Indigenous community is crushing it on there, from comedy to dancing to education. There's just like so much cool stuff happening in that community. And yeah, comedians, and just even like, it's now funny for me as a dad to dance to the TikTok things, not taking myself too seriously. Whereas before it would have just been like, there's no point. But the best part about TikTok is they have this home feed that is just random, kind of based off your similar interests, but anyone can get on there. And that's what makes it so magical, is if you go and create a piece of content and you have 4 followers, there's a chance that your video gets 40,000 views. And that is something that is just so special. And I think a part of why people are so into it is you create content. And whereas other platforms like Instagram, you create a piece of content, you put it out, anywhere from 2% to maybe 12% of your followers will even see it So if you have 100 followers, 2 might see it, 12 might see it, but chances are it's going to be somewhere. Maybe it does a little better because the algorithm sees people are engaging with it. TikTok is a flip of that. Is like I have hardly any followers, but I'll get 1,000, 1,200 views, of people seeing it. And that, I don't know, something about that just makes special. My buddy Dan, I saw he was just posted a video and 70,000 views, and he doesn't have that many followers. Or a guy like Ryan Doka from Regina, he's built up, I think he's close, I don't know, I haven't looked lately, like 500,000 followers and just millions and millions and millions of views. The reach on it's crazy.
The difference, I think, for a video platform is you don't really get to choose, except for swiping up for the next piece.
Yeah.
Unlike YouTube, where it says you might like this or watch this next, and it's constantly trying to hook you and grab your attention. TikTok doesn't give you a choice. It just says, I'm going to serve you something. And it's only a minute long, so the commitment's not that huge.
Yeah.
The very first night I installed the app, I vaporized an hour, and I was like, oh, damn, it's been an hour. And then I looked back down at my phone, and I looked back up at the clock, and it was another hour. And I was like, oh, I got to put this down. I got to go to bed. It was just mental.
It's the time flies, and that is a good point. Whereas you look at like a YouTube, it's funny, as a person who has a YouTube channel and lots of friends with YouTube channels, the amount of time we spend on thumbnails, and I'm not too bad. I'll spend 10 minutes on a thumbnail, creating just the thumbnail, try and get people to click on it. Other people, like, they spend hours setting it up because it has such a huge impact on it. I think what makes TikTok so refreshing is the good content is not the good quality content in the sense of the technical production value of the content. It's the most clever, or just people who are wickedly talented. Like, there are people getting recording contracts, getting discovered on TikTok because somebody stumbles across, this is true, somebody stumbles across them, realize they have a wicked voice, covering songs, doing originals, and you just, that ability to be discovered is what it's all about.
What I've kind of personally taken on is looking at creators, and I'm like, you shot that with your cell phone. How did you do that wipe?
Mm-hmm.
How did you do that transition? Where is your lighting in relation to your little itty bitty crappy phone? How did you pull off that beautiful looking shot with those colors?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to step up my game for Rebellion.
Right.
To make that kind of quality.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the creativity is super cool. And again, what people are just doing with phones, and I mean, a library of music where it seems like they have, I don't know if they have all the songs ever, but pretty much all the songs. So, that just opens up a lot of creative possibilities for the world. And again, if you haven't had TikTok, try it out. But if you're a very addictive personality, like, be warned, because your time will just absolutely disappear. It is not on my phone right now because I just don't have the time.
There was something you said I wanted to circle back to. It was talking about, how I describe it. In my mind, I want to call it platform fatigue, where today, as we record, it's a very negative day. Some insane stuff's happening in the United States. By the time this episode airs, it'll be completely irrelevant and people have moved on and forgotten. But I feel like there's fatigue with Facebook and Twitter, and TikTok seems to be that nice break. When I went back to the Rebellion office after Christmas, I told everybody, if you're not on TikTok, please install it, start playing with it, and then we're going to have a discussion about how we as a company can come together to start producing content. And the next day, they were all like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's so refreshing and fun.
Refreshing and fun.
One girl's like, I haven't logged into Facebook in 2 weeks because I don't want to, because it's so negative right now. She's like, TikTok is like a ice cream.
That feels like a lot of, I mean, the term doom scrolling, I don't think I've heard before 2020. I'm sure it was around somewhere, but I know for me, just for my own mental health, like, and this is coming from a guy who lived, ate, slept, breathed social media. I don't have any social media apps on my phone. I will cheat by, in my browser, going to Twitter every once in a while. The only reason I go on Facebook is Marketplace for a little retail therapy. But it is it can just be so draining. Like if you actually audit yourself and go take out a journal, go, where's my health at right now, 1 to 10, spend an hour on whatever your social media platform is, and then go, where's my mental health at right now? Rarely do I feel like you go, oh, it went up. I feel better about myself. And right, Facebook, Twitter, so much negativity with stuff that's happening right now. And Instagram, I still feel like can be a giant comparison game where you're just kind of comparing lives and people are showing the highlights of their life. And you don't always get to see, like, yeah, some people too just have like a normal boring day and it's tough with kids and maybe you raised your voice at them and were short and you were snippy with your wife, because you're all in tight spaces and you don't get to see that kind of stuff. And so it just feels like it's the highlights. So, though the platforms all get tough, and you're right, fatigue, it is draining to be on a lot of social right now because you can't look at, there was a news story I think yesterday or today of Air Canada hired some social media influencers to go on some hot holiday vacations to Mexico and talk about how great traveling is right now, which is probably not the best time. I understand the airlines, like, it's kind of, they got to do what they got to do. I'm not here to comment on whether that was a good idea or a bad idea, but I don't think anybody's looking at somebody posting on Instagram of a hot place and going, one, that's really smart, and two, oh yeah, I'm going to plan a trip right away. Or even be like, I'm not even at the point of being able to want to like, yes, I want to go back to Mexico and Vegas and all these places, but I have no frame of reference for when that can possibly happen. So it's even tough to dream. So on the other side of that is you have this guilty pleasure TikTok, your bowl of ice cream, that is just, it's fun, lighthearted, and so pretty much completely disconnected from the political, socio tough stuff, or at least a lighthearted look at some of it. Like there's lots of funny jokes about COVID on there that are make you laugh. Like we need to laugh about the way the world is going right now. And the fact that if you're in the zone, and I would say just be a little bit intentional with being careful about what you spend your time on watching, because you will get more of that. If there's something that's like a little bit dark, but you're kind of interested, but you want it to be a light snack, just go past that stuff. If there's something that feels weird, like just move on and focus on the stuff where you're like, that was fun, or that was funny, or I enjoyed that, and you will get more of it. It's I don't know whether it's uplifting or at least just a break.
You said in your blog post while you were analyzing whether Reels could beat TikTok, whether it could overtake it or basically scoop its lunch. Mm-hmm. We know that Facebook's model is to beat them or eat them. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that's going based on your blog post?
Oh, I'm not even sure what I wrote then, but I'm always open to changing my opinion. So here's where I'm at today. I just finished 25 hours of the Steve Jobs book over kind of Christmas holidays. I did Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, he's the Nike guy. It was such a crazy, wild story. And then I tried Steve Jobs. It was what a broken guy, but wow. It's interesting because, Steve Jobs is somebody who would criticize a company like Microsoft and say they've never innovated anything. They've only copied and ripped people off, But Microsoft also was very, very successful. On the other hand, what you had is Apple is rarely a company that is the first one to do something. They may make it sound like that, but usually what they do is they take what somebody else has done and they just do it really, really well. So I think that there's definitely potential for an Instagram Reels to take over. But the problem I see is that there's just too much other stuff going on with Instagram. Like you've already got stories, you've already got regular posts, you've got Instagram TV, you've got all these different layers that make it hard just to get into Reels and watch them. But for a while, I don't know, I haven't checked lately. I again have social off my phone for this season. They always are changing the buttons on the bottom, and for a while their Reels was bottom center. You could get right to Reels and then you could scroll. And it just, for me, it's really whether creators they have to pick a platform at some point. You can save your TikTok thing and put it up on Reels on Instagram, but people only do that for so long if they feel like they're not getting the engagement. So it just really depends on how the algorithm ends up favoring you. And I've seen some stuff recently of like what Instagram wants to see from you to continue to show you to other people. And it's like, a massive amount of reels every week and a number of posts and X number of stories every day. And like, you got to be so hot and heavy on it all the time that I think there'll be some big creators that go on there. But if you or me as dad want to go, hey, I've got a funny idea for a video, I could put it on Instagram for my followers, but I know that I don't post enough and do enough that it's going to get out to the broader community and be a hit. Whereas on TikTok, it's perfectly possible. Like I've only got like 3 or 4 posts, and they've all done 10 or 100 times the views that my following is, and so that's fun. So that's where I'm going to go. And there is this thing where it does just feel like a ripoff. But the big thing will be like Snapchat. Instagram basically ripped off Snapchat and killed Snapchat. But the big difference was the audience on Snapchat at that point was really young, and there was already people heavily ingrained in Instagram. But at that time, what you really had on Instagram was just a single thing, a feed. It was just pictures, and stories brought something that the world needed right then, which was an authentic look behind the scenes. It was something that people were craving at that time. Whereas Reels, I don't know. It's just like there's so much more that's gone on. Instagram has stories, again, has all the other things. So do I think that TikTok will get beat by Instagram? I don't think so. No.
I think it's far enough along.
Yeah. Well, now like over 1 billion monthly active users, like that's a lot. And it's growing, in kind of all age ranges. And it doesn't seem like they've slowed. Like Instagram's kind of too late, I feel like, at this point.
You got a farty old guy like me, and I'm telling everybody, you need to check out TikTok.
Yeah.
I think it's past that tipping point.
For sure.
You just said something that I wanted to touch upon, how creators have to interact with a platform to be relevant or be seen.
Yep.
And we've felt that pressure when we're uploading stories.
Yep.
Where our audience may not understand, but I'll break it down very quickly. The more features you use on Instagram, the more people are likely to see it. So if you're doing polls or stickers, music, the little blurry things, hashtags, and tagging people, more people will naturally see your content because the algorithm says, oh, you've checked all these boxes. Okay, I'm going to reward you by giving you to more people. But it's also a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Well, and not just individual posts, but the pure amount of the more content that you create, the more they show it to people. So if I'm on a good roll with YouTube, creating lots of videos, not just those videos, but all my backlog of hundreds of videos get shown way more in the search algorithm to people, because YouTube knows, hey, if I show them a video from 3 years ago, and they come to the channel and see not a lot's been happening recently, they're not going to stick around. They're going to move on, and they won't appreciate that suggestion as much. But if I show a video from a different guy from 3 years ago on a similar topic, but they come and he's got a really active channel, well, then they're going to stay engaged and they're going to spend more time on YouTube, which I read this one today. YouTube, 1 billion minutes watched per day. 1 billion hours. 1 billion hours of YouTube is consumed every single day.
That's insane.
That, like, when you think about, so an hour, like how many people, you're like, wait, that's like probably the people watching YouTube, like, are they all watching an hour? Well, it's an average of like 11 minutes or something. But like like that is just an insane amount of time spent. But it means people like me can make YouTube videos and still have some strength. But back to the original point, the more there's this pressure on creators and brands, where it is like the best thing for you, Matt, is if you could do 5 Instagram stories a day, 5 posts a week. You could go on TikTok and do unique content for TikTok, 3 times a day, and you could create 3 to 5 YouTube videos every single week. And you could go on Twitter and, put out, like, but it just becomes, it's way too much for people. Like, unless you're a full-time content creator and that is all that you do. And even then, like, you can't do multiple platforms without a team. Like, most of the content creators that you see, like, they have a team of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people helping them just to create content for all the different platforms. Like, for one person to do what you need to do is, like, it's insane for one channel to do that.
Last week, I had just gotten back from vacation. Mark looks at me. He says, hey, we need an idea for this post on Saturday. What do you got? And I'm like, The well is dry.
Yeah.
And I came to him with 3 ideas. I created 3 different memes because we were trying to create jokes.
Yep.
And he goes, none of those really hit. And I said, this is what I got. I got nothing. Like I was just mush.
For sure. Creativity is a muscle. It's you get in the groove, but you also get burnt out. But it's like it can feel overwhelming, and it kind of honestly there was a time before where social, even the stuff we did with Justin and Greg, now that like the Moose War is 2 years old next week, and that was huge. Like, I don't know that it would work in the same way today that it did back then, because just so much more cluttered. There's so much more people. It's tough to know what's going to land, and it is so draining when you put all this work into creating a post that you hope is going to be special, and then you put it out there and it just doesn't go anywhere. Like it's so demoralizing. And sometimes you just like create something you're like, this is a throwaway, absolute trash, and it just explodes. Like you don't know. But yeah, it's creating content on the internet is very emotionally draining, especially when you create a great piece of content, either doesn't get shown to anybody or everybody's mad about it. That sucks too.
I don't know if you saw the scooter video that we did with Mark and Paul riding on a scooter.
I don't know that I did.
I think I spent about 5 hours editing that damn thing together. We had over 32 different cuts.
Oh, yeah.
Like 6 different angles, and we had music and all this crazy stuff. And the first hour maybe got to about 800 people, and then it just died. And we're like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah.
And then for some reason at like 7 p.m., everybody decided to finish supper and go on social media, and then it exploded, and then it went crazy and hit like 30,000 people. But for those few hours, it was pretty raw.
Like it sucks. And that's the thing though, is we would always tell people this: keep swinging for the fences, like keep going for it, because you don't know when something's going to hit. And when something does hit, it can be huge. It can be massive. It can be, something really epic. But trying to create great content is important too. Like putting crap out there you're not proud of sucks. But sometimes that's all you got. The well's dry. It's like, I'll just put something out. That's fine.
One of the things I did want to kind of bug you about was Facebook seems like it's got a couple bruised ribs.
Explain.
The social media platforms, they're all slugging at each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to capture creators and keep people plugged in and locked in. It feels like 2020 was a pretty bad year for Facebook. They're getting beat up over Trump and, pushing out his content and giving his kind of guys that circular feedback without wanting to regulate free speech. I understand their position. They don't want to be seen as a publisher and then regulating free speech.
Yeah.
They just want to be, hey, have fun on our platform. But it doesn't work like that for them.
I think if you went back 10 years and talked to a Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey from Twitter or Evan Spielberg, I think his name is, from Snapchat, and I don't think they would have any idea that the weight that they have now to try and, where you have like literally the world's opinions being formed and deformed on your platform, and this threat of fake news or not knowing what fake news is or slightly misleading, and the way the headlines are now and trying to figure it out. And like today was a day where Trump got suspended by Twitter for 12 hours and will be a permanent suspension if he doesn't delete a few tweets. Like, hey, little social media platform, you've suspended the president of the United States from your platform and are demanding he removes fake tweet. Who's making that call? Like, that is not a job that I want to have and sit around and like, I want to have fun. I want to be lighthearted. I want it, but you're right. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a stagnation in the platforms because they have to shift from being creative and innovative to being on the defensive, because they keep getting called to Congress to talk about what they're doing with a lot of really like human trafficking and child pornography and the news and there's so much that they're now having to deal with because their platforms have a huge impact on that. Like they could try and just go, hey, like, well, people can post whatever they want, free speech. And there's even some new, much more free speechy platforms trying to like launch and get out of that. But it is wild. And I think I tweeted this out yesterday or something, but like social media is a really bad way to get to know someone. You know, I
Right.
said it's a 2D look at a very 3D world. And you had tweeted about how, yeah, you miss having friends, like beers with friends. Like I have beers with friends and they make a ridiculous opinion and we call it on and we argue about it and we figure it out. But like, I know what they mean and I know that they're generally good people and that just all gets lost in there. And you like, I'm terrified that like, did I at some point tweet something that was like I don't know, like maybe 10 years, like I can't remember and it's going to get nobody's dug anything up yet, but like I know that I can look myself in the mirror and go, "Hey, you're a solid dude and you mean well." But it's just that's not the way that world works. And so it is kind of like it's terrifying and it is sucking the joy and the fun, but I would say especially the last little while like what else do you do? Like there's no new content coming out on Netflix and these other platforms because they've all been in lockdown. And it feels like all you can really do is go on YouTube and social media and see how broken the world is. And I mean, maybe you can go for a walk in some places, but you can't all the social like it's tough right now to like escape it all.
I think if Facebook or Twitter, social media platforms, whoever they are, if they can crack that nut where they can present reality that is real
Mm-hmm.
and engage people, but not be so negative and not reward negativity, like
Yes.
being able to tell the difference between
Yep.
destruction and criticism,
Yep.
I think they'll be healthier
Yep.
and hopefully more successful. Maybe that's just naive.
And where they're working against themselves is you have these algorithms, which basically decide what you see on the social media platform when you're on there. And their goal natively is to get you to stay there as long as possible. Like they're there to sell you advertising from you being on the platform and continuing to scroll. Yeah, they're the drug. So if they show you a bunch of stuff that you don't like, i.e., a political viewpoint you disagree with, then you won't want to stay on their platform as long and they won't make as much money or retain you or feel like they're being successful. So they are incented to show you like minded opinions. And you get caught in this circle where all you see are people who you think like you think the world sees the world the exact same way that you do. And it justifies your opinions and what you feel. And if you happen to see something that is counter to that, then people are jumping on it because they think, well, like obviously everybody disagrees with you because that's all I see most of the time. Like it is creating this mess and this loss of discourse. And it is like that part of it is just such a disaster. And I pride myself on regularly seeing things that offend me from both sides. That's what I want. I want to continue to see both people who lean far righter and far lefter than I do say offensive things that I go, wow, that's a stupid opinion, or that makes me mad, because that means I'm somehow staying in a world where I get to see both. I mean, in the fall, we had a provincial, municipal, and US election, and I muted a ton of people because we were also in the midst of a global pandemic. And so I was like, I just need less negativity. Eventually, I'll just take a break from social. But for a while there, like, I don't see as much these days and I have to go back through and figure out, like, oh, who all did I mute? Because I might be okay following their stuff again. But, you know, I don't know. Like, we don't need to follow everyone, though. And that's okay to get away from the negativity. But I also would caution people from feeling like I'm away from all the negativity and all the people around me feel the same way I do politically. Like I don't feel like that's healthy. I just unfollowed everybody on both sides to go, I just don't want politics, you know, in this world right now that I'm in. I want TikTok. I want more fun. When I come on Twitter, Twitter can be so funny sometimes. And it feels like harder and like we feel more guilty about laughing and having fun. But I want to get back to, you know, having fun. And in some ways leaving the real discourse and the real conversations for real life, because you can get so worked up in a couple of hours on social and go on rants and argue with people and feel like, all right, I did my part, you know, and you didn't do anything, because like you don't guilt or like Facebook comment argue somebody into a different perspective. It just doesn't work that way. It's through relationship, and it's through examples, and it's through so many other ways that the world would be a much better place if it was like, hey, take that energy of getting super ranty and mad, scroll Facebook, because you can just get so worked up over something. Happens to me every once in a while, something like politically, and I'm like, I went from a 2 to a 10 and I'm so mad and all these things. If you took that same energy and went, you know what, I'm going to FaceTime somebody, or in a maybe not pandemic world, knock on my neighbors, I'll say, hey, are you okay, you need anything? Or just go do something nice for somebody. Like, the world would be such a better place if everybody's like, hey, a month off social for everybody, and all you're going to do is just go do pay it forward acts of kindness. Like, I understand there are big problems to solve in the world. We saw a lot of that this year with, people of color and the Black Lives Matter movement, and all these big things that sometimes it feels like social's helping, but it's also hurting in so many other ways. We need to find a way to tackle and discuss those issues and do that. So I think there were some positives, some of that stuff being brought to light, but the actual solve for that is not going to happen on social. It's not. The end thing is going to happen in real people relationships.
There's one thing you said about Twitter, Facebook, I wanted to kind of touch upon. I was talking with someone and they said, I stopped posting on Facebook because my family's there and people who I'm not that close with, but like went to high school with are there. And I know they disagree with me. I know I'm not going to change their minds. They're not in on the joke. They don't get it. He's like, I don't want to explain to my aunt who lives in small town nowhere the insular meme joke that I posted. He's like, I'd rather just go to Twitter where people are very much more self-aware and get his joke. He's like, it's much more fun to talk to the people who have that sense of humor. And he says they don't exist on Facebook.
It is. What's funny, I remember like the early days of Facebook, it was the friend race. Like, it was kind of like anybody you kind of knew, it was like, you'd be like, I have 300 friends, or I have 1,000 friends, or whatever it was. And now I think everybody just kind of regrets that, especially when their family members that have different opinions are on. Like, I don't actually, like, what Facebook was intended originally was a way for people to connect and see what was going on in lives from distance, And there was something like special and magical about that. And then it got to be about posting news articles, and it's killed it. And I wonder if at some point they won't break those things apart. I don't know if they can in their feed today, but to literally just have a like, hey, this is like Facebook's early status was just leading you to like, just talk about your day. Just put a one-liner about what you did today. It was just like a life, it was life updates, and then added pictures, and, it was a way for people to connect. And it's just funny how far it's come from that.
I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, Facebook was intended to be your personal webpage for people who couldn't code and make web pages.
Yeah. It was like less musical MySpace, but it was literally like, it was intended to be, here's a little snapshot of our lives. It was like the year-end Christmas card or Christmas newsletter you would send out, but on a daily format of, it kind of was, this is what's going on in our lives. And then I mostly blame marketers and big media companies kind of ruined it, because everybody just kind of came in there, was like, we have people's attention here. Great. We'll bastardize it and destroy it. And, I don't know that we're ever going to see social media be what it was, where there was a point where it was kind of like a pure, special, fun thing. Like, every once in a while, I'll scroll back to like the beginning of my Instagram and look at like the terrible photos, but like they were the fun moments of, like one of the earliest ones was we went to the U2 concert in Winnipeg with friends. It's just like a couple of terrible photos, but I look back and it just feels like I'm back there again. Like, it was special. And it's just, it's just not the same. Like, it's cool every once in a while, or Facebook pops up a memory from years ago, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, remember that?" Like, that's kind of a neat feature, but man, it's yeah, no.
What beer are you drinking right now?
Um, Tonight I have carefully selected a Rebellion Cerveza because, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, the idea of drinking a beer on the beach right now sure sounds good. My wife and I found this place just randomly. We just picked a place in Cancun kind of area. I don't remember the name of the hotel, and we were trying to decide. It was all inclusive, and they had like three different levels of like the for the plebeians, and then there was like the platinum level, and then there were these villas, and we couldn't even really figure out the difference between like platinum and villas was. But it was like an extra $50 or something. We're like, let's just take the villas, and it was like the best decision we ever made because we ended up with this private pool with cabanas around it and our own like villa with an outdoor shower and our own bartender. And we had black wristbands. And one time we walked by the platinum people and they're all crammed in their pool. And but it was just, it was our own bartender. We tipped them well. The drinks came, they'd bring you food. Like it was the greatest experience. And that's all we've been talking about this year is like, can we please just get back to Mexico? So I picked a cerveza as well. I am wholeheartedly not a fan of hoppy beers. I just can't do it. No matter how hard I try, I just IPAs, I feel like it's the emperor's clothes thing where everybody knows that they're disgusting, but they need to be cool. So they're saying that they're good. And that probably will offend a lot of beer drinkers, including all my close friends. They all love double IPAs. But I just like, I've never been able to get into like hoppy beers. And I think it's maybe like cilantro where it's just genetic. So
That's possible.
oh yeah, that's a
That's a
sound
lovely
right
sound.
there. Hey. So anyway, this cerveza, I don't know. Like I've maybe had one Corona in my life. I don't even remember it like at all. Um, I don't imagine it's anything like this, but this is just such a delightful, amazing beer to drink on a warm day.
That beer was our attempt to kind of give Corona a shot in the mouth.
Yeah.
And say, we can take your stale, skunky, sad product and turn it into something amazing, something that it deserved to be, and will take people back to the beach without making them drink a skunk's butt.
But is it gluten free?
It is
It's not made with
It's
rice.
Made with barley.
Isn't cerveza made with rice or something? Or not cerveza, Corona? Something.
Corn.
Oh, yeah. I just
But
know
that one is also made with corn.
I just know somebody who is celiac. They can drink Corona. They probably could also drink lentil. I don't know for sure, but maybe. I won't medically advise them to. They're a doctor, so they'll figure it out themselves. So, but
Well, if you're curious, we have the lentil. It does have barley. So by law, the CFIA has said to us, you're not allowed to say it's gluten-free or gluten-reduced. But in our process, we use an enzyme called Brewer's Clarex, which drops the gluten out. And then we send samples from every batch up to the food lab in Saskatoon. If it comes back lower than 10 parts per million, which is the threshold of the test, then we package a beer and away we go, right?
that's awesome.
Some celiacs report being able to drink it and they don't have a problem. Others say it doesn't matter, it just hurts them.
Right.
So we advise caution.
Yeah.
We don't say it's gluten-free. Some people can, some people can't.
Anyway, it's delicious. I also have Beach Life in the fridge, which is another great like summertime beer.
I love it.
I'm under some hot LED lights right now, so it's perfect.
And I don't know if you're getting it, but there's a little bit of lime in there. We use lime zest.
There's a boatload of lime in
artificial
there.
extract.
I know that you like drained all the limes in the province trying to make your first batch or something. You guys use a ton of limes.
We ran out. It was insane. And then we had hell of a time sourcing our second batch of lime because we went back to the company to order and they said, yeah, sorry, you bought it all previously.
It's funny.
They ran out. It was crazy.
I'm probably very unique in this sense. I didn't start drinking until I was 25, and I specifically remember the first time I had a beer. I was in Hawaii, and we just went to the liquor store. I was like, I'm going to try a beer. And the beer that I ended up picking was not in Canada, it's a Belgian moon. And I think in the US, it's a blue moon. Is that
Blue
right?
Moon, Belgian wit. Yep.
And that was the first beer that I ever had. And it seemed drinkable. And for some reason, I've always kind of gravitated back towards like those kind of like summery, put a slice of citrus in it and, enjoyed it. But I've had the privilege of working with a number of different breweries here in Saskatchewan, and it's just so special. And we, specifically being here in Regina, there aren't too many things that we go, oh, we're world class at X. But there is something really magical where I know I can look at anybody anywhere and say, we have world class craft beer here. And even if I don't like IPAs, which typically fall into the very crafty beer, but everybody, Warehouse Brewing has this Marzen. Oh, I just love it, so good. District, I love. They have a barrel aged dark, which is funny because I remember when they got fresh Kentucky bourbon barrels for one of the first batches. With their dark is good anyway, but it was like the first one. I have no idea what the alcohol content was, but we got the first batch out of it. It was high, but it was absolutely delicious. And who else? Malty, I mean, for me, like West Coast IPAs are too much, but New England style IPAs, I can do much better, and they're very creative. So, there's all sorts of things from them. Who else around here am I drinking? Who have I forgot? Oh, Pile of Bones. That is like they're their white IPA. I can do that. I can get into that. And then somebody, I think it was Saskatoon, somebody, I don't know if it was High Key or Mile, somebody had a red, like an Irish red ale, and it's one of the best beers I've had in a while.
I think that's 9 Mile.
9 Mile? Oh, it was delicious. So anyway, I'm hashtag blessed to be here in Saskatchewan, where you can find craft beer that isn't too hoppy, but still the best thing that you guys make, for sure, Prairie Cherry Mead. Which that's very, very niche. And there's many people who disagree with me completely, but that, I don't know what it is. That is my jam.
You just made Elise very, very happy. That's her favorite too.
Oh, it's so good. And people are like, it's cough syrupy. I'm like, it's delicious. I don't know what it is, but it's delicious.
The Beach Life is a fantastic low hopped beer. I think Cerveza might be one of our lowest overall hopped beers. We're going to be releasing a series of gruits.
Of what?
And gruits. It's a style.
Okay.
Low to no hops. I believe it's I am brain farting at the moment, but I believe it's low or no hops. And they're usually herbaceous beers. Maybe sometimes earthy. Oftentimes you get like a fruited sour or a fruit beer.
Yep.
And it's a different kind of experience, but still falls in the big umbrella of beer. And that's okay.
Yeah. That's why I just want to try new things. So I love Thursdays at Rebellion, which don't happen nearly as often, now as they used to, sadly. But I look forward to those days too of just like, who knows? I don't know. It's like coconut curry beer. It's like, all right, let's try it. Who knows? It's something. But, that it's definitely one of the special stories of like where you talk about like farm to table. Like it's like a legitimately super cool experience being in Saskatchewan where it's like, no, like we literally grow it and create beer and it's amazing. And yeah, it's nice when you could go somewhere and you can proudly look somebody in the eye and say, yo, like if you want to have the best beer in the world, come to my city.
Last question. 2021. What do you think it's going to do?
I think 2021 is going to start slow, kind of continue. And I think it's going to hit this pivotal moment where people are going to have a decision whether they go for it or they don't. And there will be some people who go for it who just make a huge impact. And there will be people who don't. And it's no judgment, but they won't. And there's going to be something very special about the turning point of 2021. And they talk about it's like this is a money analogy. It's not about money, but like more millionaires were made coming out of the Great Depression than any time until recently. But that idea of impact of there's opportunity for people who are willing to pivot and try and take some risks. Some people will fail gloriously too, but there's going to be some cool opportunities and there's a lot of pent up demand for a lot of things. So taking advantage of that's going to be special. So hopefully Rebellion takes just absolutely crushes the nuts off 2021.
I was literally talking to Mark 5 minutes before I got on this podcast with you, and I said, I am so convinced our team is going to run headfirst through every single brick wall 2021 throws at us.
Yeah. It's like if you can just survive it, like go for it and somehow like hang on. I think you'll do okay. But it's like it's kind of scary. Like it is a weird, wild time. But there is a craving for people to, I don't know, to escape. And any way that you can kind of play into that a little bit or find joy or I'm tempted just to start a show that's just like it was John Krasinski from The Office who had I think it was called Some Good News or and it only made like 3 episodes before it got acquired by CBS and then we haven't seen anything since, like so stupid. But it was like that. So I'm like, let's force ourselves to focus on there are still positives happening. I know there's a lot of bad things happening, but that's a discipline of the mind to go, okay, what is good? What can I be grateful for? And I promise you, we still have things to be grateful for.
Justin, thanks for your time today. Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, The Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm going to include links so you can find Justin Reves' content on YouTube and social media. Be sure to check it out. He's got some really great stuff, especially if you're into digital and tech. He's got a lot of great advice for you to find material to improve your creator game. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from right across our province. You can find them at thesaskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to join us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped, and possibly TikTok by the time this episode comes out, so you don't miss out on a single thing. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.